All right. We are back. Thanks for riding with us during that commercial break. You know, commercials are necessary because radio's free. This is the last vestige of capitalism left on the planet. And really, those commercials weren't so bad, were they? You know, radio is the only place that has not succumbed to the ravages of and the compromise and the coercion of the mainstream ministry of propaganda. I'm going to tell you why. The reason is real simple. Radio stations around the nation, there's about 10,000 of them. And for the most part, they're owned by small operations, family businesses, small communications companies that are still family businesses but might own, a handful of different stations. And, these stations are not part of the megalithic conglomerates like, the companies that own Faux News and Communist News Network and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and all these other, massive outlets of media propaganda and mind control. And when you got 10,000 radio stations, and let's just assume for argument's sake that you got a 2 or 3 to 1 ratio of ownership. So let's say you got 3,000 owners. It's hard to herd 3,000 cats. It's not hard to herd 6. Get it? And when you got 6 companies that basically control the media in the entire country, it's easy to herd them. They're easily bought out, compromised, coerced, or cajoled into doing what they're told. But when you got 3,000 of them, and they're fiercely independent, and they're really not corruptible because there's no major money in it for them, there's no position for them, there's no promise of a seat at the table of the phoenix of tyranny that rises from the phoenix of liberty, they don't really give a darn. There's nothing to be. What are you going to do? Threaten them with, taking away their FCC license? I mean, there's even limits to how far they can go with that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is why talk radio is the one vestige that's left where you can actually hear truth. And as you know, we're working on a brand new project that is going to expand our ability to broadcast to you with multiple radio hosts on a live streaming video platform. So you'll be able to hear not only the America's Voice Now program, but literally half a dozen other hosts. And we'll stream their programs live. And we're also going to be offering shortly a news program that's going to be we're working to create essentially a patriotic news channel that will operate exclusively on the internet. I mean, it may be carried on some cable stations, but we're not going to go crazy to try to accomplish that. What we do want to do is give folks who are desperate and thirsty for truth and express honor and integrity in their own lives and want to see it reflected in the media, we're going to give them an outlet where they can truthfully look and get the real story, not the pabulum that you're fed every day, not the chalk that you're fed every day to try to keep you silenced and dumbed down. And so what that means is that on this channel, we're not going to be talking about, the dog fell down the well, and we're not going to talk about Miley Cyrus and her latest escapades on stage. We're going to talk about politics, pure and simple, and how it affects you. And we're going to get in depth on these issues so that you fully and thoroughly understand the implications of what's going on. And there won't be any nonsense, forget the no spin zone and all that nonsense. We're going to try to go head to head against that and actually give you a true no spin game where we actually bring issues to light that are important for you to understand. All right. I digress. I didn't mean to get off onto that. There's 2 things that we're going to talk about in this segment: immigration and the betrayal of what's coming to us. And I want you to be aware of it because it's important. And then the second issue is we're going to talk about how the clergy and the church has sold out their congregations for 30 pieces of silver in the continuing path towards fascism that we're on. Authoritarian governments have one goal in mind, and that is the complete annexation of religion. And I got to tell you, because their religion is government, and our churches are failing to see that, and they've been lured in by the carrot of the 501c tax exemption. And what's essentially happened over time is that, for all intents and purposes, our churches have completely capitulated to the idea of the 501c3. And as a result, they have sold you and me and their entire congregation and their flocks down the river. They have sold us out for 30 pieces of Judas's silver, which comes in the form of a 501c3 tax exemption. We're going to talk about that in a moment because there was a news story out here that is important for you to know about. A federal judge just declared that an anti-gay sermon is, quote, a crime against humanity. Now, this is the kind of thing that you're going to see as we move forward into the realm of terror and treason by this administration and whoever's next in line, probably Hillary, the traitor Clinton. And they're going to demonize the church because they know that the church is a rally point, and they know that it is the first and foremost, and quite frankly, perhaps the only original community organization. And so they're going to work with the church to corrupt it from the inside, and they've done this by the use of the 501c3. So, all right, before we get too much further, I want to talk about immigration in Gutierrez. This guy, Luis Gutierrez, he's a Democrat from Illinois. He is a staunch defender and supporter of this immigration bill. And when these guys get back from this break in Washington, and they're off on a 5-week break, which basically means they're out there trying to avoid their constituents. When they get back, you are going to see a full court press like you've never seen to pass immigration through the House, or some version of what happened in the Senate. And this guy, Gutierrez, is in a town hall event in Chantilly, Virginia the other day on Monday. And here's what he has to say. I mean, talk about fear-mongering, right? And if you don't recognize the fascistic nature of what he's doing here, just listen for a moment and you'll realize it. What we need to understand today is that someone is going to die in that desert trying to return to their families. Women and men are going to die in that desert. Someone's going to lose a finger, a hand, an eye, a life today because an unscrupulous employer is going to put them in harm's way. Someone is going to die. There's a woman that's going to be raped in a field somewhere in America today because she has no rights in this country, and we need to end that. There are children who are going to cry. And there are marriages that are going to be destroyed because someone is going to be deported. And then there are going to be children that are going to be left orphaned in this country. For all those reasons, we would accept the Senate's bill. Okay, let's break that down for a moment. If that hasn't outraged you and had the hair on the back of your neck standing up right now and the sweat beating on your forehead in frustration at the betrayal and the lie, first of all, if someone is dying in the desert, that's because they chose to go through the desert in an attempt to violate our border. No one's forced them to accomplish that, and they, like every drug dealer who finds himself on the wrong end of a drug deal, like every murderer who finds himself on the wrong end of the law when he commits his murder, like every bank robber who finds himself captured afterwards, is going to have to be responsible for their own actions. That's what he doesn't say. And I'd give everything I had to sit and debate this guy in public in front of a camera for this kind of a claim, because I'd tear this dude to shreds. But you see, he gets away with it, and here's why. Because there's no opposing voice. There's never a Lincoln Douglas type debate. It's always this one-handed, vomitous diarrhea of the mouth that comes out of these traitors that sits there and builds this concept. And, if there's no opposing viewpoint and there's no comparative to give you, you don't know the size and the scope of it. Do you ever notice how when you see something that would be hard for you to understand in an image, how big it is, they show a picture of a dime or a quarter next to it, or they show something that everybody knows the size of that. And the reason they give you that comparison is because there's no other way for your mind to analogize and grasp the size or the dimension of that item. So in order to give you a level of comparison, they show you something that is known to all. In this case, what these people do is they go out there and they give you this image that it's all conceptual, and it's always the worst case scenario, and it's always the rare exception. It's never the rule. Someone is going to die in a desert trying to return to their family. Well, first of all, if they're trying to return to their family, that would mean that they're going the other way, south. Excuse me? Secondly, if they're trying to return to their family here, and their family is here illegally, and they're crossing the border illegally, that's not our problem. And we shouldn't abdicate our sovereignty as a nation, nor violate the rule of law to allow it. That's unacceptable. I mean, is that like saying that because a guy is starving, it's okay if he robs the bank? Well, the guy couldn't pay his rent, so it's okay that he embezzled $5,000 a month. Is that what you're trying to tell me, Mr. Gutierrez? Is that what the rule of law means to you? That we violate it when it's convenient because we have this emotional pull? Is that what it is, Mr. Gutierrez? Women and men are going to die in that desert. I beg to differ. We have water fountains. I kid you not, people. We have water fountains that we've emplaced throughout the entire desert just for this problem. I'm not kidding you. And the language on the sign that notifies these illegals as they're crossing the border that there's water here is in English, Spanish, and of all things, Chinese. Go figure that out. I don't get it, but go figure that out. Now, if they're going to die in that desert, first of all, that's a minuscule percentage of the true total that come across the border. So let's not try and take that and call that the rule. Let's call that the very, very rare exception. So stop trying to make us think, Mr. Gutierrez, that there are bodies laying about as vulture bait all over the desert, and if we just scanned it with a camera, we'd see one every 50 feet. You're a liar, and you're a fearmonger, and you're a warrior for illegals. And I have no respect for that. And you should be drummed out of Congress for your betrayal of the oath against the Constitution that you took. You see, integrity is what you have when nobody's looking. And you don't even have it when they are looking. Someone's going to lose a finger, a hand, an eye, a life today because an unscrupulous employer is going to put them in harm's way. Someone is going to die. Okay, so let's take that and break that down. Somebody's going to lose a finger, a hand, an eye, or a life because of an unscrupulous employer who hired an illegal, figuring he could get him cheap. Okay, great. So that doesn't mean we open the border wide open. That means you crack down on the illegal employers. You're pointing the gun in the wrong direction, idiot. If the employers are the responsible party, then that's who you crack down on. You don't hold the bank responsible for the fact that it was robbed. You hold the robber responsible for the fact that he robbed it. I mean, come on. You know, I'm so tired of this kind of diatribe and this brainwashing and mind control that pours out of the mouths of these scumbags. It's like a never-ending river of diarrhea. And it's always putrid, and it's always rotten to the core, and it's always corrupt. And it has the stink of death. Someone's going to lose a finger, a hand, an eye, or a life today because an unscrupulous employer is going to put them in harm's way. Hey, guess what? Americans every day work in dangerous enterprises. Americans every day on the farm lose a finger, lose an eye, lose a hand. They get it caught in the tractor. It gets caught in the hay baler. That happens every day to Americans. So what are you saying? We should have some special dispensation for illegals? And what we should do is completely drop our pants as a nation and lose our own sovereignty so that an employer is not really held responsible for his illegality? Why don't you go after the employer? Why don't you make it a criminal offense and say, if you're an employer and you hire an illegal alien and we catch you at it, you're going to do prison time. That'll solve the problem right there. No civil fine. We're going to give you prison time. Hey, guess what? You've got literally 2 million Americans in prison for getting caught with a couple of joints in their sock. So don't tell me that you can't do it. You're just unwilling to do it because it wouldn't be politically popular. And then you might get voted out and you might have to go back to being a nobody. instead of getting the best seat at the table in the House, instead of having a bunch of little sycophantic aides over in Washington fawn all over you physically and mentally and emotionally while your wife is back at home in Illinois, you piece of trash. That's what you're really in office for, ego, power, money. And you don't give a damn about America, and you don't care less about our people and this nation and our sovereignty. And I can prove it. Your statement right here tells me that you have no respect for the oath of office that you took to uphold this Constitution. There's a woman that's going to be raped in a field somewhere in America today because she has no rights in this country, and we need to end that. Hey, guess what? There are women raped right now, and there's somebody being raped right now in Chicago. Rape is a crime, irrespective of who commits it. And so what are you going to tell me? That she got raped, and because she was an illegal alien, she was afraid to come forward and tell? Well, guess what? You know, there are a lot of women who are raped who aren't illegal aliens. They were born as naturalized citizens here, and they don't tell either. You know why? Because the justice system is a system of injustice, and it makes them more guilty because it tries to prove that because she was wearing a dress, the guy had the right to rape her. That's the legal system we have. So don't give me any diatribe about somebody who is going to get raped in a field somewhere by some jackwagon coyote who's going to sit there and say, well, I'm afraid to tell because, I'm an illegal alien, and the coyote is a Mexican national who comes across here long enough, takes my money, and then rapes me, and then leaves me over here in the desert pummeled. Listen, tragedy happens everywhere in the world, sport. And you know what? Illegal immigration and the fact that tragedy happens as a result of a crime, criminals rob banks all day long, too. And sometimes the gang gets together after the bank has been robbed, and they find out that somebody's a stool pigeon and a squealer, and they blow his brains out. Does that mean that we're supposed to stop having banks because that endangers the potential for the criminal who's actually committed the crime to get shot in the head by his cohorts? I mean, listen, you see, that's the problem here. There's never a Lincoln-Douglas debate where rationale and thought and logic are intertwined into the conversation. It's always this left outside, once in a trillion, if we were all living on a desert island. Guess what? That scenario doesn't hold water, sport. Gutierrez, you're a traitor and a violator of your own oath of support for this Constitution, and you should be bounced out of this government. There are children who are going to cry and marriages that are going to be destroyed because somebody's going to be deported. Hey, guess what? If you're here illegally, there are children who are going to cry because you're going to go find their father who was selling crack on the corner the other day, and he's going to go to jail. And their children, and guess what? His children are going to cry. They're going to cry when daddy goes to jail. Hey, I don't know what to say. Daddy shouldn't have been selling crack. There are children who are going to cry because daddy's going to jail because he evaded his taxes. You don't have any sympathy for them, though, do you? Oh, that's right, because they're the ones who you're living on. Golly gee, forget I even thought that way. You see, the reality is there are children who are going to cry all over the country. And they're going to cry all over the country because mom aborted their brother. Or dad is a drunk. Or dad has committed a crime. Or mom embezzled some money and she's going to jail. And they're going to get tossed into foster homes. Does that mean that we ignore the crime? Of course not. So how is it that you say we should ignore the crime because children are going to cry? My golly, we live in such a perfect little society that we would never want to see a child cry. Marriages are going to be destroyed because someone's going to be deported. Well, guess what? Marriages are destroyed every day because somebody goes to jail for committing a crime. So what are you trying to say? We should just completely make all crime legal because we don't want marriages to be destroyed? Is that what you're trying to say, Mr. Gutierrez? I'm asking you. I mean, give me a response here. Feed me back a little bit. Tell me what exactly it is you want, Mr. Gutierrez. Tell me exactly what it is that you're looking for from our society. What kind of abdication? What kind of global absolution do you want? Oh, or is it only because you have a Hispanic descent and you're really lobbying for your own selfish agenda? Oh, that's what it is, isn't it? You're sitting there lobbying for the Hispanic vote in Illinois so that you can get yourself reelected, so that you can go and wine and dine on the taxpayers' money. You can live in a posh and magnificent lifestyle. You can avoid Obamacare that you voted in. And you can sit there and get the finest seat at the House, right up in front at the stage, and get a free bottle of wine on the House and have everybody fawn over you like you're some small little lord. That's the real truth, Mr. Gutierrez. And the truth of the matter is, you're afraid to show America what you're really made of. There are going to be children that are going to be left orphaned in the country. Well, first of all, if their parents are here illegally, they're not going to be orphaned. I don't know of any scenario where both parents have been deported and a child's been left here orphaned in the country. Not one. So give me that example, Mr. Gutierrez. Show me an example where somebody has said, Mom and Pop are both illegal aliens, but the baby was born here, and we're going to orphan the baby by shooting their parents back over to Mexico City, but we're going to keep little 3-month-old baby Juanita here, and we're going to insert her into some kind of a foster care program. Show me where that's happened, Mr. Gutierrez. Otherwise, admit on the open air publicly that you're a liar and that you made that up. The simple truth is, this is the kind of crap that America falls for every day. We're fed a diet of lies and a diet of self-serving agendas that really have absolutely nothing to do, that's designed to pull on your heartstrings. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Our society is built on a rule of law, and it's built on a rule of laws. These laws are in place so that we as a society can collectively live together. And, for all intents and purposes, we hand over our individual sovereignty in a certain number of respects, that of general protection from the public. We give government police power to say, you can settle our disputes for us, so that, you don't go over there and beat your neighbor's brain in because his kid stole your kid's bike, right? There's a way for us to resolve that in a civilized fashion. But what you're telling me, Mr. Gutierrez, is that it's okay for us to break those rules when it's self-serving for you and your constituency, who you're hoping to gain, which is against the best interest of the rest of the country. And you're going to use an emotional argument instead of logic and reason and truth and integrity and honor and honesty to accomplish that end. Your Machiavellian concept of the ends justify the means makes you a traitor. You want me to spell that for you so you can go look it up? It's Traitor. That makes you guilty of treason. Treason. Treason against your state. Treason against all your constituents who are not Hispanic and not illegal. Treason against the United States of America, which is an oath that you swore to take and uphold against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And if you are violating our border, you are a foreign enemy. I'm not saying we don't deal with compassion. I am saying that this kind of diatribe and this kind of lie is not the way you go about doing it. And I, for one, and I'll wager that I am not alone in this, the rest of America is just sick and tired of this kind of crap. We're tired of being lied to, and we're tired of being sold down the river so that you can continue to sit in your seat and house of power. That's what this is all about. This has nothing to do with illegals. You couldn't give a rat's rear end about those people. You don't care about the woman raped in the field or the guy who lost his finger or an eye. You don't care about orphan children. What you care about is whether or not I'm going to still be in Washington in 2014. And that is the truth. You're listening to America's Voice now. I didn't even get the 501c3s. We're going to take that up another day because this immigration thing is so out of control. Folks, when your reps come back in, and if you're seeing them before they leave, you make sure you tell your House reps any immigration law that passes that does not require an absolute 100% verifiable sealing of the border prior to any amnesty, any grants of any kind, in any way, shape, or form, is an act of treason. And they will be accused and construed and held against such. That's the truth. Including you, Mr. Gutierrez. We'll be back in a moment, folks. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Send Mr. Gutierrez an email with a copy of this from our YouTube channel. Let him watch it. Bet he won't like it.